Coming up on Cruise In, presented by RK Motors Charlotte, a Franklin Limo, an electric city car, a Continental Mark II, a Dodge Royal, a car that floats, and Fords, and more Fords, all under one roof.
If I get a few extra dollars, I'd go out and buy an old car, and then I'd buy another one.
We visit with collector Bob Jones. Plus,
there were goofy spots. You know, the quarter panel, the way that they put it on at some point in its life early on.
There are always challenges and surprises in any restoration. We check in on the last Hemi. How's all that sound?
Terrible. Terrible.
Yeah, well, too bad, Mike, because Cruise In, presented by RK Motors Charlotte, starts right now. It's downtown Akron, Ohio, a city once known as the rubber capital of the world. It's the home of Jones Group Interiors, a residential and commercial interior business owned by Bob and Eric Jones. It's a beautiful facility in operation, no question about it. But at Cruise In, we're much more interested in the private collection downstairs.
Bob, I don't think anyone would ever expect what's basically an auto museum in the basement of your business. This is fabulous down here.
Well, let me tell you, I never expected to have it. So with my background and my upbringing, this is more than I ever expected to have. I've been blessed beyond my wildest dreams.
How did this come about?
It was pretty gradual. My wife and I have been married 57 years, and when we started out, we'd buy an old Ford and pay $100 for it and drive it, and we liked that, and then we'd buy another one, and then my little boys came along, and things were getting a little bit better. Then I started the business. When the business was improving, if I get a few extra dollars, I'd go out and buy an old car, and then I'd buy another one, and then, you know, as things progressed, I just keep adding to them. And then I bought this building just 16 years ago, almost right now, and we started restoring it. It was an old Tasty Bread bakery, and which had not been a bakery for almost 30 years. And but we remodeled it. We got an award for the design of the building, the interior. Of course, that's our business, interior design, so and space planning.
You have dozens of cars. What do you look for now that I mean, your collection is very, very large. Mm-hmm. What do you look for now in cars?
Well, sort of the unusual, like this car here, the Amphicar. That's certainly nothing that I had when I was young. A lot of these cars represent what I owned early on in my life. But so the Amphicar, and we have the DeLorean over there, which is new, and we have the electric car, or the city car, and the Avante. That's the type of thing I look for now, because I got a lot of Fords.
Unique, interesting, different stuff.
Yeah, you know, I'd love to have a real nice Edsel and that kind of stuff. The orphan cars, as they're called.
Oh, there's plenty of time.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Easy for you to say.
Tell us some more about this car.
Okay. This car was owned locally here, and it was in a barn for many years out in Bath. And my nephew, Dan Henterly, a young man, knew about the car most of his life. And when he got old enough to decide he wanted to get into it, he'd been in cars for a while, and he went out and was able to acquire this car from the owners, drug it right out of the barn. He did a perfect restoration on it. There's not a thing left undone. And when I acquired it, there was some electrical things, and my mechanic, Bob Bachtel, and his helper, Bill Salisbury, completed it and finished all those things up. So it's just about a perfect car right now.
Have you put it in the water yourself?
You know, I've been tempted and I've been asked, but I don't think I'll ever do that.
I don't think I would either, Bob.
I just can't bring myself to do that.
It looks too perfect to put in the water, doesn't it?
And there's no way when it comes out of the water that you get all the mud or seaweed or anything out of it. So I don't think I'll ever do that to that. I'm interested in preserving some historical things, and that's why a lot of this stuff is down here. One thing I do want to mention, if I sound like I'm bragging on any of these cars, I probably am, but I'm allowed to.
That's honest.
Because I didn't build one of them. Every car down here that you see, that's the way it was when I bought it. Whether it's this Model T here, the gentleman spent 7 years restoring that car, and I got it and it's like new. And then all the rest of the cars that you see are nice and shiny. That's the way I buy them.
Well, let's take a look around.
Okay, let's do that.
Bob, a Dodge Royal, 1958, with a nice personal history.
Yeah, the history is pretty simple. My younger brother, Bill Jones, passed away. He was 2 years younger than I am. But he passed away about 9 years ago, and he was in the midst of restoring this car when that happened. And it's pretty well cosmetically done. Bill was an upholsterer, and he went on the internet and he found entire interior upholstery for this car, and he installed that. My father was also an upholsterer too. And then Bill did the chrome and the paint job. Mechanically, he didn't get that finished, but it's a really nice car, and we're proud to have it here.
And you don't see Dodge Royals very often, let alone four-door Dodge Royals, because the four-door car is not overly collectible, so that makes this one pretty interesting.
Well, and it's a four-door hardtop too. There's no post in it, yeah.
You see Corvairs, Bob. You don't see too many Corvair pickup trucks anymore.
That's true. I've sort of been on an adventure trying to acquire some of the orphan cars, as they're called, and I had my heart set on a Corvair, but I really wanted a Spider convertible. Well, as you can see by the looks of that truck, it's not a Spider convertible, but it's an excellent Corvair specimen. And the interesting part of that is there are some Corvair pickup trucks around, and most of them are what we call a ramp side. The side folds down. Mm-hmm. This one does not. It's a straight sided. So it's one of the rarer trucks that Corvair made because it's not a ramp side. This is one of my favorite cars. It's not one of the cars I've had the longest here. I probably had it 5 or 6 years. But I never knew what a Franklin was until a friend of mine said, Bob, I know there's some old Fords if you want to go look at them. And they were out east of Youngstown. So I said, okay, I'll go out and look at it. And they were nothing I wanted. But this car was there. And it was sitting in this shed. And it was pretty dusty and had boxes stacked all around it. And the fellow that had me out there, his father had restored this car. And it was just about done. The bumper wasn't put on, a few things. The unique feature of this car, there's several, but one is it's an air-cooled engine. There's no water in this car. The other thing that I think is quite unique is it's a wood body with aluminum over it, but it's also a wood frame. So their claim to...
And it survived.
It survived, and they claim that being a wood frame, it had some suspension qualities that made it a better ride.
Ford fans, get ready.
We walk into what you call what?
Ford country.
Ford country. There are Fords everywhere here.
Yeah.
We make Henry proud. Next on Cruise In, presented by RK Motors Charlotte.
Sally, Tina, Betsy, you've developed quite a bond with your classic car. Let the consignment professionals at RK Motors Charlotte make the selling process as painless as possible. Through precision marketing and large customer base, we all but guarantee a sale at maximum value, and we don't get paid until your car sells. We've sold over 1,500 classic cars here at RK Motors Charlotte, and now we'd like to get to know Betsy, at least for a little while. Visit rkmotorscharlotte.com.
Now back to Cruise In, presented by RK Motors Charlotte.
Bob, we walk around the corner and we walk into what you call what?
Ford country.
Ford country. There are Fords everywhere here.
Yeah.
12 of them in sight and another 8 or so over here.
Right.
You love Fords.
Yeah, I do. It's been the history of mine. Again, starting back in my early days when I was a kid, you could buy a car and drive it. These cars, like this 40 Ford, in the era I grew up in the early 50s, we were teenagers then. And this was the car actually I could say it about every car here, but a 40 Ford convertible was truly the car that we wanted to own. So I finally was able to acquire this one, and I'm very happy with it. But there's several other 40 Fords here. There's a coupe, an Opera coupe. It's got little jump seats in the back. And then there's a two-door sedan in back there.
There's a special one right over here, in the middle here.
Yeah, this car is special to me. This is a 1934 Ford Roadster. And it's a lot of the Roadsters, because of the body construction, the hinges were pretty weak and the doors would hardly close.
Not that one.
I've owned that car for over 30 years and it's still the way it is. Again, this car is the way I bought it, except we put a new top on it, and I did have some mechanical work done. But this is the way it looked when I bought it over 30 years ago.
Now, a lot of the cars in your collection you haven't had nearly this long. Why have you hung on to this one forever?
Well, it's one reason. I'll tell you. I had a friend in here some time back, and he looked at this car and he says, "Bob," he says, "there's not a design flaw in that car." And I truly feel that that was a correct statement, because it's just the overall appearance of it and the design and the proportion of it. But it's a good running car. It's still got mechanical brakes. That's the way it came. It's an 85 horsepower. And we put the top down and got the rumble seat in the back. A lot of people today don't know what a rumble seat is.
No.
But we enjoy the rumble seat. And my wife and I have probably driven that car more than any car down here. It's one of our favorites. This is a 36 Ford Coupe. It's called a 5-window coupe because it has the little quarter window. And a lot of the 36 Ford Coupes are called 3 windows because it doesn't have that. The 3 windows are a more rare car because there were few of them made. But here's some photographs. These were taken out at the Akron drag races out in front of the Rubber Bowl. And this is the car I had at the time. It was a 36 Ford Coupe.
Looking just like this one.
Like this one. Now this one got less than 25,000 original miles on it. So, but there's some of my friends that were with me when we took these pictures. And there I am sitting on the roof of this car. And this was in the summer of 1954. And that fall I got married. So the car thing sort of went out of sight, and I got busy with my family and trying to make a living and so on and so forth.
Yeah, those things that get in the way of the automobile hobby.
You know, but life's been good to me. This is a copy of the title of this original car, and on there it indicates I paid $95 for the car, but I didn't have $95. So there's a chattel mortgage of $76.21 that I had to make payments on. So, but that's a nice little car. That's got the original interior in it, and the car is an original car, just about almost 100%.
Don't let any of your buddies sit on the roof of this one, okay?
No, I better not, because that could create some problems.
Bob, that's a good-looking 1941 Ford. Where'd you find this one?
Thank you. Actually, it was on eBay, and it's a very, very nice car. Without me even saying so, it's got this badge on there that indicates that it's been judged to be a national first prize car by the experts that know a lot more about them than I did. After I acquired it and we got the book, I got a whole ring binder showing the process of it being restored. And the car started out, before the restoration, really a pretty nice car. And it was like an olive green, like an army green. Mm-hmm. And the car in that stage was exactly like the first car my brother Jerry owned. He owned a 41 Ford 2-door sedan in that color. So who knows, maybe it was his first car, we don't know.
Bob, not just one 1941 Ford, but 2.
That's right. But this is a convertible, and this has got a special interest in my life. This car I've had maybe 12 years or whatever, but before I was married, and that's been 57 years ago, I had a 41 Ford convertible like this, only not as nice as this. Then I traded it to my brother Bill, who has the Dodge we just looked at, and Bill drove it for a while. And the day he was trading it for another car, he wrecked the front end, and so I wound up buying it from that guy for, at that point, $100. So I owned it twice, and Bill owned it once, and then my brother Tom, he owned it two times. So all in all, we owned that 41 Ford convertible 5 times in the family.
Well, then you had to get another one.
Yeah. Well, that's true. I had to. And today, a gentleman, a good friend of ours that I respect an awful lot, Jack Morris, now owns that 41 Ford convertible. He's probably 10 minutes away from where I'm standing. And he always says, "Bob, I think you should own this car." And I said, "Jack, you owned it more than I did." So we go back and forth with that. But on some of my open houses, twice now he's brought it down here. and we sort of put them nose to nose and tell that story. So this has a special meaning to me. See right here is a 1935 Ford, and it's a four-door convertible sedan. A lot of people look at this car and say, oh, it's a Phaeton. Well, it's not a Phaeton. A Phaeton is a little different style. This car has roll-up windows in it, and the Phaeton has side curtains. So that's the main feature that's different between a four-door convertible sedan and a Phaeton. But other than that, this car is as new underneath as it is on top.
When you talk about Ford, you have to mention Lincoln once in a while, and you have a fine one.
Right. Well, actually, this car belongs to my son, Eric Jones. Eric's now the president of the company, and he's really the producer in the company these days. Although this was a Ford product, they developed the name Continental. So it wasn't a Lincoln Continental, it wasn't a Ford, it was a Continental. And as I understand, they formed a company by that name. Now, I could be corrected on that, but that's where I understand it. It's a very unique car. As you mentioned, the exhaust comes out of the bumpers.
Always like that.
And here's sort of a secret compartment, if I can get it open. This is where you put the gas in when you need gas. If you,
wow.
There we go. So now you've learned a little secret about the car. But this is really and truly an unusual piece of automotive history. This car was way ahead of its time and way over its time. It sold for in the neighborhood of $10,000 in its day in 1956. And you could buy any car, luxury car, for like $5,000 back in those days. So,
has a great interior too.
oh, it's gorgeous. This car was totally restored. The interior is leather. It's all authentic Ford when it was built. It's authentic to the period, and the color and everything. So it's an unusual car.
As Gomer Pyle would say, surprise, surprise, surprise.
You know, we found that in the 1/4 panel patch that was on the car, and apparently that was the only work that was ever done to this car.
The restoration of the last Hemi is next on Cruise In, presented by RK Motors Charlotte.
Handling classic and high-performance vehicles requires an industry-leading team of experts. Welcome to RK Motors Charlotte. Industry-leading means meticulous attention to detail when servicing every vehicle. It means a consignment service so fine-tuned that a successful sale at maximum value is all but guaranteed. And a rigorous inspection on every vehicle before its tires even touch our sales floor. It's all this and more that make RK Motors Charlotte the industry leader. Visit rkmotorscharlotte.com.
From start to finish, it's the restoration of the last Hemi.
I can only imagine, having not done it myself, when you get a car in the shop, you can look at it, you have a really good idea, but then you start taking it apart and you start looking for parts and you start finding things. What early challenges have you found in this job?
Mostly the early challenges that we've had, a lot are sheet metal. The 71 Charger, it was the first of that body. There are some unique things to just the 71 Charger. And as you've seen from the car, there were some unique rust spots in the 71. So the challenges so far that have been, you know, tough are, one, finding OEM, usable, nice, 40-year-old pieces.
An OEM?
Original equipment manufactured. You know, we're not talking anything that was restoration. We're either looking for anything that was NOS, which was new old stock, been on a shelf brand new for the last 40-some years, or an original equipment piece that came off of another car. So that right now has been our biggest early challenges, is making sure we're getting quality parts to replace on this very rare car that we're producing. It's a balancing act. So that's the challenge, is, you know, when can I get this part? When can I get it here? So it falls within my time frame of keeping this car on track, on schedule, and at the release date when we want to unveil this car. And that, you know, that's that's always going to be the most challenging. That's the biggest early challenge, and that'll be the biggest challenge throughout the whole thing.
How about early surprises, good or bad?
I would say, wow, a little bad, some good. The main structure of the car was extremely solid. The metal was clean, the frame rails, all the parts that usually take a major beating and where cars usually rust out were wonderful on this car. There were goofy spots. The quarter panel, the way that they put it on at some point in its life early on, it must have had a hit. And back then, like I said, it was an appliance. The car back in early 70s, it was an appliance. It got you back and forth to work, or it got you to the track and you got to do some burnouts down the track and race the car. It wasn't a collectible item. It wasn't some collector car. We found that in the 1/4 panel patch that was on the car, and apparently that was the only work that was ever done to this car. And the patch job was just maybe acceptable for the day. Terrible at any standard nowadays. So that was a big early, I want to say, disappointment, surprise. But I've already peeled into that, started taking it off, and underneath is good. I'll make it right. You'll never know it was ever there. So maybe a little more than we expected, but no big deal. No big deal.
For more on the restoration of the last Hemi, visit our website at thelasthemi.com.
When it comes to restoring or servicing your classic or high-performance car, expertise is the name of the game. And that's precisely what you'll find at RK Motors. You'll find our expertise in the attention to detail that can only be acquired through years of working on world-class builds. You'll also find our expertise in the RKM Performance Center, where we've assembled a team of highly qualified ASE-certified mechanics. When expertise is the name of the game, trust the experts at RK Motors. Visit rkmotorscharlotte.com.
Now back to Cruise In, presented by RK Motors Charlotte.
Bob, the nice thing is after you get done with all your cars, you can put your golf clubs in your glorified golf cart here and just go play a little golf. Look at this electric beast.
I could do that, but I don't play golf. I tried it once and it didn't work, and I've got enough bad habits.
You gotta stick to cars, right?
Yeah.
A 1976
city car.
All electric.
All electric. And the unusual thing about it is you mentioned a glorified golf cart, but really isn't, because it's got all the features of a regular car, hydraulic brakes, turn signals, emergency brake, that type of thing. But it's one of my newest additions. The electric car isn't a new idea. This is a 76. I have a 1906 Baker electric in the back there that is a relic, and as far as I'm concerned, will remain that way. So electric cars are really not new, although sometimes we think they are.
Well, Bob, I can't thank you enough for sharing your collection with us. We appreciate it very much, and the wonderful things you've done for the automobile hobby.
Okay, well, I've been blessed to have this collection and be able to share it.
I'm Jeff Phelps. We'll see you next time on Cruise In, presented by RK Motors Charlotte.